Hey, yo, I feel like talking my shit. 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 Ay.
Hi, everyone. My name's Naomi. Welcome back to 50 Shades of Red podcast. It's been a minute. We're back. Hopefully, this conversation is going to be short and to the point. Just warning you now, you might not like where it's going to go. So, tonight, for our guest co host, I have with me Thomas or T.Cat. I'm going to let him introduce himself, put his YouTube and his Twitter, and then we'll get right into it.
All right. Appreciate you having me on tonight. What's going on, world? My name is Thomas Jordan, or you call me T-Cat. So my background is in education, mainly. For undergrad for school, I went to Delaware State University, shout out to HBCU, where I majored in political science and business management. And then I got my master's degree from Central Penn College in Master's of Professional Studies, Organizational Leadership. So for the past about 10 years, I have vast experience in education and leadership fields, ranging from being a teacher to a coach, mentor, tutor, coordinator, in all various different capacities, simply working primarily in inner city school districts. So I definitely have seen this kind of the educational field, especially how it's impacted the Black community, especially those living in adverse conditions. So I kind of have a very unique perspective about some of these things, especially really being in there and the ground level to it. As you mentioned, I also have a podcast. It's called Well Connected on iTunes. I'll make sure I'll drop the link in here, and as well the YouTube channel as well, Well Connected. So I'm excited to be on here today. Definitely a lot of dope stuff we can talk about and ready to get into it.
Okay. So this kind of started with Trump's platinum plan. I think that's like a really good way to come out. First of all, genius fucking name, right? Like it makes you think like you're getting approved for like a credit card that you can't afford. But I think a lot of the issue with the platinum plan was people expected him to already have done this. And then additionally, I believe there was some talk about whether or not he stole some of these ideas. A friend of mine, shout out to Matthew, sent me some documents that basically showed Kamala Harris and Biden years ago and kind of throughout the course of their, regular careers advocating for some of these things. And then obviously my response was, well, of course, these people were going to advocate for it because it needs to be done. So I don't necessarily care that these are new ideas or if they're old ideas. All I care about is who's going to enforce the ideas. And is it realistic? And if it's realistic, perfect. How long is it going to take?
Right.
But I think one thing particularly on this platinum plan, and I know it's kind of hard to see it, but it's like that's the way his website is right now, is they talk a lot about school choice on here and having safe urban neighborhoods and access to like trades and jobs. They even talk about extending the Pell Grant, giving people, higher amounts of Pell Grant and making it so that you can go to trade school with it and not just college. So as somebody in the educational realm, first of all, how do you feel about school choice? Do you think it's attainable? What's your view on that? Let's start there.
So school choice is actually it's interesting, a slippery slope. So on a surface level, on paper, I think school choice can be a very good thing. I think it can offer a lot of people in disenfranchised communities a better opportunity to obtain a higher level education. I know just personally working within a lot of inner city school districts, there's so many obstacles and barriers that just exist in everyday life that trickle into the actual school system, and there's a lot of lack of resources and lack of access to a lot of opportunities that a lot of kids are held back by, right? So the concept of a kid being able to go to another school district without having to pay some high tuition level or having to be held back, restricted by that, I think can be a really good thing. Now, my biggest aspect about an education, it always comes down to, yes, the schools, institutions, it's very important for a kid to be that in a certain environment, but it comes down to, especially within the Black community, you need actual teachers and stuff that can relate to the kids. Because you can send a person out to a really nice school in the suburbs and everything, but if culturally, if the teachers cannot relate or adapt to those kids, then you're not necessarily going to have the results. And we're also looking at school choice right now is very interesting. Is like, all right, so for some people, they play it up as it's for to help. Sometimes the Black community can help out, which it can. But what I'm really seeing it as, there's a lot of white liberals and stuff who are gentrifying and moving into like inner cities and communities and stuff. And what's happening is they don't want to send their kids to a lot of those inner city school districts. They may not afford to send their kid to private school either, but they don't want to send the kids to like the inner city school district. So school choice is really, in my opinion, sometimes kind of about the white liberals, stuff like that, having the option to send their kid not to the inner city school and somewhere else. And it kind of disguises under, well, help Black kids, inner city kids out in school choice, and use the mascots for it, which oftentimes Black people are used for the mascots, and oftentimes a lot of Democratic based things as usual. So for me, it's a complex thing. I think it depends on who's pushing it. It can be something productive and positive. But unfortunately, I see it as another aspect where you get these greedy land developers and real estate people, which a lot of people don't understand, like that goes a lot in these charter schools and things as well. It can be very positive, but at the same time, it's a lot of money up for it. And people just expect the situations to take advantage of it. So school choice can be a positive thing, but unfortunately, it can also be something very exploitation-wise of the Black community.
No, I think that's really well said. Sharice is like a really big advocate of school choice. And, you know, her being young, I think she had like did a interview or something, and she referenced how like, you know, she was given, I think it was like a grant or a scholarship or something like that to a charter school. And she thought that was the same. And I was like, no, it's not the same at all. You know, there's a big difference in lotteries and scholarships to private schools than there is to just us saying we're not going to be paying that money to a public school. You're going to get the check, and then whoever you choose will send that check to them. You know what I mean? I think how it works is a big just like a big question mark to a lot of people. And I hate to say this, but it's no other way to say it, right? Like, I'm sure you guys have seen, and I've posted it on my Twitter. This is in Philadelphia, so I can't speak, and I know you're in PA, so I can't speak to everyone else. But in PA, a lot of the inner cities like Philadelphia, like I'll even say Reading, right? Like Chester, they are crap. The public schools are crap. My kids, fortunately, never had to go to public school. But growing up, like my mom would do what everybody else did. She would lie and say we lived at such and such's house so we can get into the better public school. Because like who wanted to go to the one at the corner where they were shooting every week, you know, or gang warring? But now that we have Zoom, we can see exactly how bad these kids are. And like, oh my God, these kids are bad as hell. And if they're like this on Zoom, oh, just imagine what they're like when they're not at home and no one's like there to watch them. I think that whole Zoom thing has really given us insight into how bad our kids are, and how unrelatable the teachers are. I know like you referenced that, and it's so true, because you got these, I think it was in the video I posted, you got this like meek little 30-year-old white teacher who never had a job other than this, and you got man in them pulling up guns talking about bitch this, bitch that. And she's just like this, you know, she's not even attempting to de-escalate. She's not attempting to relate to them, nothing. And then we see like these videos from Atlanta and Georgia where we have these beautiful Black teachers. Have you seen these videos where they're like changing the curriculum to incorporate like songs, like they redid WAP to make it like a algebra song or something? You know, it's just such a difference. Like I wish we could have that. I wish there was a middle ground so that you could say, all right, the school down the street has notoriously been known for gang wars and, you know, drugs and this, that, and the third. If we all end up moving, that school will be closed. You know what I mean? If we all end up taking our kids out of it, they either close or they get better. And the only way they get better is if we have more minorities or people who live in that community and know the people in the community to become teachers. It's really like a never-ending circle. Like,
right.
And I think until we address the bigger issue, of relatability and Black teachers and minority teachers and people who just live there that care about those kids, the later of our kids behaving in school and our kids doing better, you know, paying more attention, that's not ever going to happen. So I think school choice is ideal, but it's going to fall on deaf ears if we don't make up for it in other ways. You know, like the bill says he wants to increase Pell Grants. Perfect. People need more Pell Grants, right? I think it also says something about continuing protection for HBCUs and things like that. How do you feel about that? Like, do you think that some of these ideas are kind of already out there and could have already been put in place?
So I'll say as much, right? So for myself, and being an HBCU grad, right? One thing I can say, HBCUs have been cool under Trump. Like, there was like coming into his presidency, there's a huge fear mongering aspect, like, oh, Trump gonna defund HBCUs and all this stuff, and black people go to school, and a lot of it was this isn't true. In regards to the Pell Grants, it's very, very important, and I can actually speak from a participant observation perspective. Back in 2011 was my freshman to sophomore year of college, undergrad, and a lot of black students in general rely on Pell Grants to go to school, and especially it's really, really a bulk of it HBCUs because it's predominantly all black, mostly black students. And so I remember going that freshman sophomore year, and one thing that happened was President Obama at the time had cut back on the number of Pell Grants and access that the Department of Education was putting out. And primary people got impacted by it was black students. And I remember my freshman year class, we came with 1,000 people. And they always say, look to your right, look to your left. You come in, you won't go be there in a couple of years. But we went from like 1,000 down to about, I'm not exaggerating, like 350 or something like that coming to sophomore year. And the primary reason was they couldn't afford to come back. It wasn't that the grades were deficient or anything like that, but because the Pell Grant thing got cut, a lot of people lost their access to it. So that's one thing I actually tip my hat the President Trump has done during his presidency was actually restore some of those pre-Obama era things to Pell Grants and have been very sustainable. So Pell Grants are very, very important and stuff. And I think it's really important, especially HBCUs for funding, because unfortunately, a lot of HBCUs struggle financially. And oftentimes they're overlooked. We have over like 100 HBCUs. It's more than just Howard. It's more than just Hampton. It's more than just Spelman. And no respect to those colleges at all. My dad went to Howard. My mom went to Bennett College. Like I'm actually a 3-time HBCU alum. My grandparents went to Virginia Union and Morehouse. So it's very important to me, and it's something I really recognize. But we also, at the same time, we're in no position to like deny opportunity. That's one thing of the black community. Like, we're in no economic condition and say, oh, we're not going to take that, or what? With the alternative is losing it completely. So I do think it can be, again, if allocated correctly, if someone's in charge of it is serious and it's not disingenuous. But I do think, yes, absolutely, it could be beneficial.
I never went to a HBCU. I went to Penn State, and I know we have like the biggest alumni network in the country, but I often hear people that go to HBCUs or they're thinking about going there as opposed to like a really big state school or getting a scholarship at Ivy or something. They think that the education isn't the same, because it's an all black school that A, it's racist, or B, it's pushing racist ideals and things like that, kind of like, I hate to say it, but like a Bob Jones type of situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until recently, and I hate to say this, but somebody was like, hey, my son goes to a HBCU and he's white and he loves it. And I was like, really? And they were like, yeah, it's a great education. There's no difference. You know what I mean? The only thing is it's a historically black college. That is pretty much it. Everything else is the same. Did you ever feel stigmatized by going there and having your degree from there, for employers and things like that?
Yeah, so that was an interesting thing, right? So of course I've always heard those things, right? As some people have stigmas and stereotypes of going to a black school that somehow, since it's black, it's less in some type of way, or the education, the poem won't be the same, or some aspect, some regard. But in general, no. I mean, for ourselves, especially like to use, a lot of them are trying to be a lot more diverse. And sometimes when we say diverse, it means actually bringing in other people, minorities, who in this case actually are times white people in other aspects. So especially at Delaware State University, although we were obviously primarily a majority black campus, we had a lot of commuters and stuff, people who just live in Delaware. A lot of white people who just took classes there. And so a lot of these programs, especially within STEM, and HBCUs are really developing high level programs and things, and are getting really good recognition from it. So in general, coming out, once I got a job right away. When I graduated from undergrad. I got a job started actually substitute teaching, and I got a job coaching basketball in old high school, and then it turned to a longer term position. And I was never any of the positions I applied for. It never was looked at as, oh, this is HBCU, oh, it's not accredited. Now, one thing I will say from an honest perspective, when I was trying to figure out going to grad school, one of my mentors, who actually was the head of the career studies at Delaware State, he told me, he could be very honest with me. He said, yo, if you go into grad school, you can't double up HBCU. And the reason he said it was, right, it wasn't because it was any disenfranchisement to the HBCU. It's because reality is when some employers, people look at your resume, and they see your undergrad HBCU, grad school HBCU, they wonder, well, are you diverse? Can you adapt to the situation? So I tell you all the time, if you're going to about going to school, you gotta do one or the other. You want to go to a state school for undergrad, cool, bet, and do grad school HBCU, that works. Or you want to do vice versa, or you want to do straight state schools, and that's the best program. I'm all about Black education. If the best program is at a state school, go there. We need to make sure we're on all levels. So I'm all for Black education, period, where it comes from. But I do say there is actually a stigma. That's when he told me, just that's honest perspective, as a Black man talking to another younger Black man. There is apparently some stigma aspect of having a double HBCU, whether it's undergrad or some type of grad school aspect. So it's not an interesting perspective, but I have never personally have faced, I guess, some type of disenfranchisement or something like that because I've went to HBCU.
That's funny that you say they said that, because when I became like the rep for the FT.Tcat here, immediately everybody on the board was like, have 2 resumes, one resume with your FT.Tcat stuff on it and one without it. And I was like, why? And they were like, well, because some employers see that and they're automatically turned off by it, because apparently a lot of people in law are very liberal. And I was like, I'm not doing that. They take me as I am, or they don't take me. I don't feel like I need to hide who I am to A, get a job, but B, all they got to do is Google my name and it all comes up. So it's kind of pointless to hide who I am. But I think we're like entering into a realm for even with our kids where it's like they have to know where they stand. You know what I mean? Like, I know my son, he's in 1st grade now, but like in kindergarten, they sent something home around Martin Luther King Day, and he came home and was like, we learned about Martin Luther King and segregation. And I was like, what? Who? I didn't sign that. Why are they? Why is this white woman at an all-white school where you're the only tan person? There's no Asians. There's nothing else. You're the only tan person. Why are they having this conversation with you at 5? Like, that is inappropriate. Now he's literally saying to me, like, okay, such and such is Black. That was never a thing. You know what I mean? It's very like, and he even told me he doesn't want to be called Black. And I said, well, why don't you want to be called Black? And he said, because people who are Black are dark skinned and I'm tan. I said, no, that's not how this works. See, but you see what happens when you point these things out to kids? Like, they don't understand it. And then you got teachers who just breeze right by it. And he's, taking that information in. So I actually went up to the school because I'm confrontational and was like, hey, as being the 1% here, that's not appropriate. And next time you think about maybe educating our kids on racial issues, you should send something home so I can say I want my kid taken out of class that day. And they were like very open with it. But the fact that I even have to say that when he was in kindergarten is a problem to me. Like, now I got to explain to my kid what Black means. I got to explain to him he can't say nigga. And it's just like, it's a whole thing that it turned out to be a whole thing that I didn't want to deal with, So I think, at least from a parent's perspective, when it comes to school choice and like all these policies that Trump's putting into place, I'm looking at it like kind of how you were. More education is education, period. Like, if I think something in the bill said, or the proposal said that they were going to give more STEM technology grants or something like that to HBCUs particularly. Great. It makes me wonder why they don't already have it. But yeah, great. So a lot of these things I'm kind of like, but you've been here for 4 years. We were supposed to have medical. That didn't really happen.
Right.
Like, I love the whole prison reform, perfect, but that groundwork was really already done. He made amendments that, plateaued it, but the groundwork was done. So what on this list was not pretty much already founded? I mean, he can change a lot of it and push it through, but most of it was kind of drafted already. Like, I'm just not seeing the benefit for people who aren't already on the right to switch over because of this.
Right. And I can say it for myself, right? So I'm a registered independent. Now, I'm 10% will never vote Joe Biden or Democrat side ever again. Like, that's a dub completely, right? But for someone, right, for me, President Trump, like, I have a problem with Trump. Right? I'm not anti-Trump or anything like that. But this plan doesn't sell me on him. Like, this plan doesn't, to be frank with you, it doesn't make me, bet I'll vote for him. Now, I will recognize at the same time, right, this is the first president to ever offer a substantial, like, economic plan specifically for the Black community. Whether it's cap or not, whether it's just something on paper, it's something there, and specifically within the Black community. So I'm recognize that. That's cool, because President Obama didn't do that. All right. So, I was always told we can't do stuff for specific people during his whole presidency. Then boom, Trump pulls out. Now, a lot of people have also referenced the timing, of course, for the election. Now, you dropping stuff like that, very convenient. At the same time, I understand there's a lot of stuff that happened during the presidency. And like you said, because of other stuff has been talked about that we're going to do in X, Y, and Z that has not occurred. So of course, a lot of presidents as well, it takes 2 terms to, get a lot of things they want through as well. We have to be, cognizant of that. And so one thing you mentioned is really interesting, even with the prison reform and the Second Chance Act, which I think was really good, right? But one thing we got to go further on is that affects the federal levels, which is cool, but the state prisons and stuff like that don't adhere to that. So I think sometimes people miss that. So that's one thing we also got to keep the pressure on people is understanding, all right, well, how do we, go towards addressing those issues and things? And again, like you said, a lot of some of the stuff in the actual, the Platinum Plan, a lot of it isn't necessarily new groundbreaking ideas or things that never been talked about before, right? Same time, politicians don't honestly steal ideas from each other all the time, putting their plan stuff. Like half of Joe Biden's plan is like lots from Bernie Sanders stuff or stuff Elizabeth Warren had. So, again, it happens like a lot of times in that regard. But the good thing is like, all right, it's trying to actually implement it. But I think it comes down to, again, let's say, hopefully gets reelected. Who's going to be the person that's going to be in charge of actually putting this plan and process into place? Who is the person of the authority? Because a lot of people I talk to be honest, right? Some of my friends and stuff, and they're kind of left, liberal and stuff. They're like, they're open-minded, they're not crazy. But when I try to talk about this plan, they say, oh, Trump didn't do that. Oh, Trump's not smart, dude. Some of them are so disgusted, they're like, I'm not even going to look at it. They're like, oh, because I already know it's just crap. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the Black community, unfortunately, have that mindset. So I think if you really want to get people behind this stuff, it really comes down to who's going to be the person leading this on actually implementing this thing, and who are they qualified? Do they actually have, what's best for it? What's the fine print in this and stuff as well? Because let's be realistic, nothing's ever as simple as it seems. A lot of times, these plans and policies, there's always little asterisks and stuff like that. So I really think it comes down to who implements this correct. I think there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of promise into this. And to be honest with me, we never got anything offered anything else before, so why not look at it?
Why
That's
not?
my biggest thing. Why not even just look at it? The fact that people just automatically dismiss it, like we're in no position to just automatically all rip, like not even look at it. Like, nah, let's at least look at it. If you want to disagree with it, disagree with it. But this whole kind of idea of like we're not even gonna give it a chance, well, I think that's just genuine. So it's like I hate when people call like Black people slaves, and I hate using the dim plantation aspect and those quotes. But sometimes when y'all acting as if like you not even look at another choice, well, that kind of sounds like almost like a slave mindset in some regard in terms of how approaching things like that. So that's all. At least be open minded.
I think that open-mindedness, like you said, it has to come from the right person. It's already kind of a stigma attached to Trump. And I know a lot of educated Black people that will definitely hear him out, but at the end of the day, they feel like he's the ultimate con man, just because of the media. And it's really not like that. They don't go above and beyond to fact check things and to say, well, wow, this really wasn't what it was, because they don't care that much. They're pretty much already set in their ways. But I don't know if it's like, because you're pretty close to me, so I don't know if you've seen it, but there are a bunch of school choice billboards like near us, and none of them say anything else other than school choice. Like literally all it says is Trump 2020 school choice.
Right.
Like that's it. Nobody there's no more push for it. Like you're not gonna throw some catchy up there. You know what I mean?
Right,
I think Kim Classic, if she had kids, man, she'd be perfect. Oh my gosh, she'd be perfect. We need her, but with kids. Like one of them with a bunch of kids. You know what I'm saying? Like Angela Stanton, she can't do it. She can't do it. You know why she can't do it. I'm not gonna say it. But y'all know why. All right. Well, do we have any Black people in a position like that? No, we really don't.
We don't. We need Sonny Johnson in position somehow. Keep pushing us through for us.
Sonny Johnson, that's different. Here we go. She got a kid. She Black. She's she's with a Black man. So that works. That's what we need. We need somebody who's actually from where we're from, who knows that, I'm not trying to send my kids here. Because I guarantee you, after this whole Corona thing, with all this Zooming, parents do not want to homeschool their kids. They don't want to do it. They really don't. And they know that there's something lacking in the school district. And I'll give you one better just to kind of give us an example of what we're dealing with. Philadelphia had like 2 weeks leading up to the first day of school online, where everybody had to come and get their iPads or whatever and all their materials, right? I lied to you not. My girlfriend FaceTimed me from down North Philly. It was over like 150 people in line at the 8 a.m. and they were supposed to be online for Zoom at 8 a.m. So that goes to show you we're dealing with people who have so many other priorities going on that this is kind of at the bottom of the barrel. And I hate to say that as a mother, but it is what it is. You know, sometimes these things, like, they're just not of the utmost importance. So when it comes to voting, you know, it's like how do you even reach out to that type of voter? You know what I mean? You have to throw it in their face. A lot of people on the right are so quick to say like slaves and Trump this, Trump that, but I don't see that same energy for school choice at all. And that is how they win women, like mothers. School choice spans all economic, all economic backgrounds. It really does.
Right.
And they're not even trying. I feel like they're half-assing it. Like,
Yeah, it's not really as much of a comprehensive plan. And it's interesting you mentioned that about in Philly. So I'm here in Harrisburg, PA, which is about 45 minutes from Philly. And in the school district, inner city, the Harrisburg school district specifically, the inner city one, similar, I mean, literally, it was the exact same problem issue where, again, they announced, weeks in advance, we're going everything all virtual online, giving kids, laptops to school out. And literally, like, the day of they're supposed to start, they actually had to push to start the school back because people still didn't have the laptops and computers.
yep.
Stuff wasn't set up still.
The internet went down in Philly. It went down for 5 hours.
Yeah. A lot of people in here don't even have internet in the parents in the household, so they have to use some type of hotspot which they're trying to provide for these students. So there's so many logistical things you would think that would have been, thought about beforehand. And I know, like, a lot of schools in Philly, the school district Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, unfortunately, has been taken over by the state of Pennsylvania now. It happened last year. They went receivership, in which there was so much financial corruption and academic non-progress that the state had to take over now, which I know in Philadelphia, there's a lot of schools like that too. School districts are taken over by the state as well, and also like in Reading. So, like, when that happens as well, now you're not even getting the actual people, communal members, and people are making these decisions. And so I do think, like, done right, school choice can help out a lot of these kids. There's a lot of good, smart kids, like, in these schools and everything. And a lot of them opportunity don't get the chances to really, I feel, blossom into what they could, because it's a lot of it's environment. And I'll say this real quick as well. We need to understand the cultural approach. And that's one thing I've had an advantage working in education. As a young Black male, I'm able to culturally relate to all these kids. And the school I worked at last year was a long-term sub. I was an honors geometry teacher. And the school was 96% Black. And you have 90% white teachers. And that's not to say that white teachers can't teach Black kids. I'm not saying that at all. Someone's a good educator, they can reach students, right? The problem is most of these teachers and everything, they don't even live anywhere near the city. They all live about 45, 50 minutes away in a lot of rural areas and stuff like that, where the only interaction they have with Black kids is literally coming to that school. So sometimes there's a cultural disconnect and everything in which they don't understand why these certain kids act the way they do, because the socioeconomic conditions are just different. And so I do know, like, there's a lot, there are definitely some white teachers who get the struggle, get the thing, and can connect. But a lot of times those teachers can't. And it's not necessarily their fault. I'm not blaming them for a lack of interaction, but that's the reality. And a lot of these students and stuff like that kind of struggle sometimes because there's a lack of that. So that's why I say even for school choice, it can be very important to help students out. But for a larger bulk size, for the brown and Black kids and these and minority students as a whole, if you don't have teachers that can culturally relate, it kind of low-key sometimes doesn't matter what school you send them to, because there's still that disconnect. It can't just be, has to be organic. It just can't be created artificially. So that's something to keep in mind.
And I think, like, because we talk about it a lot on Twitter, I'm sure you see it, like, oh, we don't want it to be like a Black thing. We don't really want to see color. And look, I don't want to see color, but some things it's impossible to take it out. It's impossible. But I'll give you like a really good example. Oh my God. One of my favorite followers, Midnight Gutter Stomp. Yeah, him and me are like this. Like, we had the same life. I'm not even like, we had the same life, me and this guy. Just looking at him on Twitter, you're like, oh, this like 40-something-year-old white man. Like, of course not, but literally everything, all the struggles I be putting on Twitter, he relates. He has gone through it and more. So I think if we had people like that, where it's not even a race thing, it's just like you kind of said, if they're culturally brought up in a similar environment, that they just say, hey, I'm from around here, I know how it is, like, you know what I mean? every Thursday night you meet up at the Poppy store and we do this, that, and the third, or I know the kids are out doing this. Like, I think that just goes a long way, and it's not even about race. It's just about relatability and other aspects. A lot of these teachers aren't trying. They're not trying to relate to their kids in other aspects. They look at it like this is a summers off type of job, and I'm getting paid a pretty good amount. I mean, it could be better, but I'm home by a certain time every day and like minimal effort. You know what I mean? Like, you're really not even structuring curriculums anymore because it's pretty set for you, so you're not even doing the real hard work that like used to be done. But I think that we need more. Like, I'm voting for Trump. That's not going to change, but it's hard for me to tell a lot of my white liberal friends and a lot of my Black, educated moms, like, oh, this is way better. Oh, how? Like, okay, sure, school choice. He's not even really talking about it. And you want me to, because people are one issue voters. So if I see somebody, you know what I mean? I feel like school choice is the only thing that people on the left don't talk about. That's the only thing that they don't combat. Have you heard of them combating it? No, right?
No, that's one thing they're not anti. Anything else is always anti. Right. I mean, Trump would say the sky is blue. Oh, the sky is green. The sky is green. I mean, everything else goes crazy. But you're right. And the main point, that is the one thing they don't criticize, because
they don't touch it.
They don't touch it.
Yeah, they don't touch it.
Partly because they know it can benefit them, as kind of referred earlier, because they kind of with that, because they kind of want school choice, because they're kind of moving these areas and want to see these kids in these schools. But like you said, on the right, that could be a good selling point, especially for the Trump presidency, of trying to increase that Black voter percentage, right? If this was marketed correct, of, hey, yeah, we have a lot of schools are shut down and are corrupted and have a lot of these problems and issues. And honestly, there are a lot of parents, who, like, I would think would love the opportunity to send their kids somewhere else. And like you said, that even that situation coupled with yourself, right? I know some people, especially who, do the same thing, or use someone else's address to go to their school for betterment of kids, right? That's just being a parent. That's just trying to help your kid the best situation. And that's something I feel like get marketed right and everything. I mean, dang, that could be a real good selling point. People think, hey.
It's a shame that, like, my mom could have been locked up for that. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. How many people like that end up going to DHS and get put in court because they lied about their address for the school? You know what I mean? So I think this is like something we've been dealing with for years, like decades. As far as I can go back, I remember my family and them lying about where they lived for school. Like, we were always like 40 minutes late to school every day because it was, it was so far. And like, but eventually the principal peeped game and didn't even say anything, because it is what it is. What are they going to say?
And the thing I'll say is a plus why I think people should really get behind it is because we had this almost issue a couple years ago when school was working at. There was a huge increase of kids coming in there, but it wasn't adding up in terms of the addresses. So like halfway through a year, they based like an audit. They basically had to make everyone like prove like somehow like where you stayed and everything. But the thing about it, they weren't mad, because apparently schools get like, it was like extra like $5,000 a head for a kid. So honestly, like, I don't know why schools should be kind of behind this, because they should welcome people and stuff like this. There should be incentive programs and stuff like that. So again, if done correctly, like you said, it would take away from that fear of having the potential to go to jail. We see like unfortunate situations where people have gone to jail again for just lying about their address, become like a kid, have a better education. You know what I mean? It's like they're a monster for that. They have to, face crime and law. So we should definitely change something. So that should never be the case, where if education, and especially the United States as a whole, right, we're seeing we're slipping in education from a worldwide, international perspective and everything. We got to pick it up. And so we need to do things to ensure that we can pick it up from all levels, regardless who you are, regardless of race or creed. So I think that is school choice would be something that could really increase that.
I'm just not understanding how so many people are on the left, especially, are screaming healthcare for all and all this other bullshit that I honestly don't think America was built to ever do. And they think about it and they're like, oh, we can do it. Other countries do it. Well, look at the VA. I don't think we can really successfully do it. Those other countries started with that. They've had years and years and years to hone it, you know what I mean? And to revise it. We're coming in after testing it with VA, and that was a shit show. And you expect us to be able to just end a whole market of private insurance? Like, it's not realistically going to happen. And if there was a hybrid, maybe if the private insurance companies got some type of incentive to play game, maybe, but I don't think that's priority. I honestly don't. I think we're worried about the wrong things right now. I think, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but people worried about Roe v. Wade being overturned, worried about the wrong thing. People worried about universal health care worried about the wrong thing. I think what we should be worried about is student loan debt, ways to decrease it, ways to provide students with other access to getting education that doesn't require them going in debt, school choice, right? Maintaining Second Amendment. And I think that's pretty much it right now. Because at the most, late term abortion. I think that's really as far as abortion needs to go, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me.
No, and I agree, because those are things that actually really impact, especially within the Black and brown communities as a whole. And just because some of these things are just unrealistic battles, like the universal health care thing. I mean, it just sounds nice. But a lot of things Bernie Sanders said sound nice weren't realistic. I mean, so we have to be realistic about where we put our time and energy to, because if we're keeping holding up on stuff that's not realistic, we're losing out on, it's the opportunity cost on things that can actually better us. And like you said, talking about with student loan debt and stuff like that, get some relief on that, because that's a huge, obviously a burden in this country, right? And think about the healthcare system, but I also really, I think, health and nutritional aspect as well in the community, and just pushing in better alternatives and things, financial responsibility and financial literacy. I think that we need to implement that, because as much as sometimes people see capitalism could be something that hurts, but I think capitalism can also something that can benefit and uprise when done correctly with group economics and that endeavor. So those are things we need to focus on, like stuff we can control, because we need to be more self-sufficient as a whole. We need to focus on things that make us more self-sufficient and not dependent. And unfortunately, oftentimes our community, we focus on things that make us dependent or subservient to some type of group or ideology. And we need to break free from that, because, we need to be in a position to understand, like, regardless, we need to demand, I guess, tangible assets from either or, tangible policy. I mean, we need tangibles, to be honest. And again, sometimes you have to take emotions out of certain things and put it towards something that's more realistic of occurring. There's some things I can get into, but I'm gonna get canceled out here. Like, for example, all right, so myself, I personally believe in Black people should get reparations. Absolutely. Same. I think it should be a financial, some type of restitution should come from it, right? And I think we need to keep putting the foot on the gas for that and not let off. At the same time, right, I'm also kind of realistic about when that's going to come in terms of the prioritizing. I look at when President Obama himself, the Black president, came out and said, "I don't believe reparations." It kind of makes me hard to think, well, who else is going to be the person that's honestly really going to push that through? Now, much as I'll say this, is that we can take the time and energy, which we should have, but if we put that towards, I don't know, school choice, or put that towards getting student loan debt or some type of economic empowerment.
It does the same. It gives you the same resolution, I feel like.
And that's what I'm thinking in terms of realistically what can be done in terms of, I don't want to call it a pipe dream, because it needs to happen. I'm never going to say a pipe dream, because it should and it will occur at some point. But at the same time, we're 150 years in. It's not like slavery just ended like 5 years ago. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm saying in terms of, like, for right now, for short-term stuff, we're focused on things we can actually truly probably get done.
And I think too, the counter argument to like reparations and anything that pretty much feeds the minority communities, it from the right is, well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, capitalism, right? And I'll give you one thing, capitalism, pull yourself up. Strippers. The right loves to condemn strippers. And I don't know why. I honestly don't. Strippers pay taxes. They are Schedule C employees, okay?
Right.
So if you want to talk about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, stripping is the number one thing that does that. And I think Kim Classic said that she wanted to do something where basically drug dealers were able to take that money and put it into the community and buy different property and buildings and things like that. And people were condemning her, saying, oh yeah, let's just give the drug dealers opportunity. Capitalism, right? Why not? Why not? Why not? We're making marijuana an acceptable recreational drug now. So you're taxing it, and everybody who's getting a cut from it. Why not do the same for crack and heroin and everything else? If we're so limited government as conservatives and we want less government, why not? Why do we want to control everything? Why do we want to control free will? Free will is the right to do anything to your body, put anything in your body. So we should just say, fuck it, make drugs legal, right? Tax their ass, make all the drug dealers pay certification, maybe licensing fees. Let's give them an actual business so that they can pay taxes, right? Like where's the issue here? Look at Nevada. They made sex work legal. Look at the Bunny Ranch, how successful the Bunny Ranch
Well,
was for
yeah,
years.
yeah, it was. Yeah, that's true.
Them
Yeah.
girls were making like 10 racks a week and
Mm-hmm.
paying taxes
Mm-hmm.
for prostitution. So, like, I hate that the right, they pick and choose when they want to say, like, capitalism, it's great, it's the way out of everything. But, like, when people really talk about real capitalism, they don't want it. They don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah,
think that's something we need to work on.
it was very true. I mean, that's a very excellent point. How sometimes there's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes down to it, and sometimes it comes to people okay with the narrative as long as they can control it, right? It's even like, for example, like, I see with this whole social activism stuff and everything. Even people on the left, must they say this whole defund the police, right? Even the Democrats are kind of like, all right, defund the police, but on our terms though. It's still this whole, we're going to control the narrative for how we go down. We're okay with it, but, as long as we're okay with it. And, that should be, especially with capitalism, like you said, in those regards of, things that people call vices, whether it's, strip clubs is a huge, industry and just growing stuff, right? Or the idea of people of drug dealers, stuff like that, investing your money back into the community in some positive aspect, right? Or, of building it up. And it hits this resistance because it may, interfere with people think those are vices or think those are positive things, right? But one aspect I always thought is like, with our Constitution, it's one of the greatest things where it protects the good guys and bad guys. And when you interpret it, however you interpret it, you should be able to gain opportunity from it. Because that's the beauty of our country. It should be put in place where, like, yes, if done correctly, you should be able to monetize. You should be able to have take advantage of opportunities and things. That's supposed to be the beauty of it. And sometimes we hinder that by speaking down on different endeavors and things. Because sometimes it comes down to, well, hey, if we're not in on it, then we don't want it. And it should be
Exactly.
on the larger aspect is, this should boost the overall economy. This isn't something we're just talking about one economy where you think this is only going to boost the only black economy. No, it's going to all trickle back into the overall economy in our country. Y'all
Where do
gonna
you
eat off
think
of
they're going to
this.
spend the money? And, like, come
Yeah,
on.
no, let's be real. Right. I mean,
It's team
98% of this.
building.
Right. And so that's one thing that sometimes I don't get and that's something I actually encourage Trump with putting together this, on paper, this economic aspect. Because again, like the black community has a $1 trillion annual spending power, but 98% is spent outside the community. To be honest, that number is not going to get that drastically low. We're still, in the day, I know we're building more black businesses and blacks officially, but in the day, they're going to still spend most of it outside the community, which is into the actual economy as a whole. So if we encourage programs and stuff that's based on economic, production and stuff, it helps America out. I mean, this helps everybody out. Everybody eats, B. I mean, we had to really look at it from that perspective. So these are things I think, especially within the right and in all levels, we need to, people get behind. Like, it shouldn't be something that's looked deterred on. You need to be consistent about what you're trying to produce.
And I think him bringing a proposal is good. It's a good start. But when are we going to actually see, like, the breakdown of how he's going to do this? Like, is that ever going to come? Because if it doesn't come, it's not going to be good. It's really not going to be good. Like, he has to, within the next few weeks, put down solid work for this.
Correct. And someone and more importantly, who is qualified and someone who can speak on their own about it in a high regard. Because again, like you said, if all right, it sounds good. Like you said, it sounds on paper, like a lot of stuff, it sounds good on paper. But then how it gets put in place into play. And especially because it gets to Congress and has the stuff get voted on. And, I look at it sometimes as that's one thing I did, that's a hesitation, but it's interesting how since some stuff has to go to Congress, right? You can flip it on stuff doesn't get passed. Well, Democrats didn't want to pass it. They didn't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, it's a good flow. I get it. But, it's stuff that you didn't want to get passed in the first place. What's going to get passed.
You really
but
didn't
you put
want
it
to
in.
get passed.
You didn't want to get passed. And it's not going to get passed, but you put it in anyway. Say, hey, I tried. I tried to do something, but didn't stop me. So that's one thing I do, look at this a little bit like, how much of it is really actually going to go through here? So
honestly, I think everything on this list he has is realistic, honestly. Like, I don't see a reason that they wouldn't put it through. I don't see any, like, let me see, I'm trying to pull it back up. I don't see any crazy amount of money, like, being put to one area. You know what I mean? All of this is kind of just extending what's already there and revising it to be better.
right.
But yeah, we're going to have another show. I'm going to bring you back on at the end of the week, and we're going to talk about that thing we said we could talk about.
All right.
So go ahead and plug your YouTube and your Twitter again.
All right. Yeah. Make sure you can check out, again, my Twitter at Tcat NPS. You can check out my podcast. If you actually go to my Twitter, if you click my link tree, have all my links on there. My podcast is on iTunes, called Well Connected. And if you search on YouTube, it's Well Connected on. It's called, actually, you search on YouTube under TCAT, TCAT. That's on YouTube. And again, if you check my link on Twitter, click my link tree, have all my stuff on there. You can check my YouTube out. It's on my podcast, also on SoundCloud as well. So if you got Android out here, I got you covered. So again, I appreciate you having me on today. Definitely a real dope conversation that we cover a lot out here. And again, I'll have you soon on my podcast as well as a guest, so we can get more in depth of some things as well, change the conversation. But yeah, appreciate you having me on today, though.
All right, guys, I want you to retweet, like, share, comment, all of that good stuff on Twitter, on YouTube. Next time, it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to tell you now. Rated PG-13, I'm going to say. So we'll hit you guys back up probably later in the week. Thanks so much for watching.
Hey, yo. I feel like talking my shit. I feel like talking my shit. I feel like talking my